decision as to how we move forward.
You emphasize that this is a listening process,
yes.
that in as much as the volunteers have stated that they're ready, move and open or form a political party, you want to ensure that South Africans' voices are heard and
yes.
form part of the forming of this political party. Now, I quickly went to your profile on social media.
Guys, good evening once again. Welcome to South Africa Lately, a channel that discusses South African trending news. We do, however, grab here and there from international news when it is trending enough to be brought here. Please do understand that I'm not a politician. I do not have deep knowledge in politics. However, I am a South African citizen who's also a voter, and I do believe that my views count when it comes to political affairs of our beautiful country. To my new subscribers, guys, I hope you like it here. Days are not always going to be good. Sometimes I'm going to say things that will annoy you. Sometimes I'm going to say things that will like, what is this? What is she saying? Like the video that I posted less than an hour ago, and I realized it now I was using something that is not true. You know, these days people post things just for likes. So I realized when I was following that story, I realized it disappears somewhere. So I thought to myself, let me pull that video out. All right, okay, guys. So I was listening to Floyd Shivambu's interview. The interviewer asked the SABC interview, they asked if he is willing to form a political party that is not too aligned with ideology, that is not too much into ideology, but a party that prioritizes agility, because we need things to be done in South Africa, and currently we are stuck. We are neither here nor there in J, you know, so we need something like that. And the interviewer even said, it is good. Pan-Africanism is good, but it's something that is far. Is he willing to say not now? For now, we are going to prioritize South Africans. Do I understand that? That question was imposed to Floyd. Floyd, that is a previous member of the EFF and a leader. We know what the EFF prioritizes. So it was interesting. The answer there was interesting. He didn't want to say it openly that I'm going to prioritize South Africans. And if they don't do that, they are still going to have the same problem that they had with the EFF, not being trusted with being in government, because you are not addressing South Africans. We need a political party that is clearly talking to South Africans, that is clearly ready to act and work to take South Africa forward. So I'm not going to bore you on longer. I'm going to allow you to watch this video. There's something also that Floyd said before I leave you to watch. He said, former President Jacob Zuma, the president of MK, wanted him to be the president of MK. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? He said, former President Jacob Zuma, the president of MK, wanted him to be the president of MK, and he rejected it. So, guys, I'm going to leave you watching. Enkosi guys for watching my videos. Do have a beautiful night. I'm not going to be coming back with more commentary. Enkosi guys, my new subscribers, Isana didini we mini be in there. So man and dating doesn't get call. So go collect guys. So get to my new subscribers. Did Enkosi guys for being here. I hope you like it. And please, days are not always going to be the same. So up in the spotlight now sometimes.
Some of what he revealed at the press conference from last week. Mr. Shivambu, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to listeners of and viewers of SABC.
No, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Now, we saw that post that media briefing. As a MAYIBUYE engagement team, you have gone on to indicate that you have been inundated with applications of people who want to volunteer. Just talk to us about how the process is unfolding now.
No, look, after the press conference which we held on the 19th of June, we then later on got to issue an invitation to volunteers who would form part of the consultation process, and we have received tens of thousands of people who got to volunteer from different provinces.
All right.
We have a pledged commitment to say that they want to form part of the consultation process, but it appears that a substantial number of those are already saying that let us start a political party, but we don't want to take that decision yet. We're still going to get to meet with traditional leaders, with religious leaders from all corners of South Africa to get a clearer perspective as to just what should distinguish a political movement if we were to start such, as an alternative to the existing political movements in South Africa. So we are in the process of listening and consolidating a process in terms of what we're going to do. This coming Friday, we're going to hold a press conference to announce the national consultation team, which is going to crisscross all the 54 districts of South Africa, all the 257 sub-districts, which are municipalities, and all the 9 provinces and all sectors, to listen to the people as to just what should constitute a differentiating factor of this movement to the existing political movements in South Africa. And it's so far so good. It's a humbling experience. Like we didn't anticipate that we'll get the number of people who got to pledge solidarity, and both young and old, and from different sectors of society. And what is also quite satisfying and humbling is that the people come from different political parties, like literally from all political parties, from the ANC, from the DA, from the EFF, and of course a substantial number from MKHONTO WESIZWE. Like we have got very senior leaders, former leaders,
that
black
have applied
leaders,
to be volunteers.
Yeah, very former senior leaders who occupied very senior positions in government, who have pledged solidarity to this particular process and say that we should proceed in terms of what happens. And also we got a lot of invitations from traditional leadership councils, Amakhosi, Zinkosi, Tihosi, Bokosokolu, and everyone else who said that please come and appraise us of the process so that we can have contribution as well as to what is to be done. And we're quite humbled by the commitments that we got to get from different sectors of society. And we are genuinely listening. And once we've listened, we will then take a decision as to how we move forward.
You emphasize that this is a listening process, that in as much as the volunteers have stated that they're ready, move and open or form a political party, you want to ensure that South Africans' voices are heard and form part of the forming of this political party. Now, I quickly went to your profile on social media. It says Pan-Africanist, socialist, and of course you're a Marxist scholar. Now, what happens if in that listening process you have ordinary citizens that say, we want a political party that will not be rooted in ideology, a party that will display a level of agility and be able to pivot when conditions dictate? For instance, if a party said, we right now see that our economy is not doing well, we want a leader or a political party that will absolutely put the interests of South Africans first, everybody second. Pan-Africanism is most certainly a pursuit that is noble, but not now. The pie is just not big enough. What happens to your own political socialization? We know where you come from. Are you now a leader that is willing to become a blank canvas because you're going to the people to say you guys are going to mold the kind of political party that you want now, even if it means you become a man who dabbles in protectionist politics?
Now, look, we will be guided by what the people are going to say much more clearly. I've learned a lesson before, like where I got to conceptualize and write the founding documents of a political party and literally got to download my political perspectives into the founding documents of the Economic Freedom Fighters. So the Economic Freedom Fighters says it's a Marxist-Leninist organization, it's Pan-Africanist. It ascribes to heterodox economics, and those are my personal views in terms of how it got to happen. And admittedly, it did not get to become a mass movement to attract millions of South Africans to give it government responsibility. I got to appreciate much more practically that we need to broaden a movement and mobilize the entire sector of society, the entire different constituencies, and be much more open for contribution, that we must not develop some closed-off cultures and sect-like kind of politics. We need to open up, but there are certain non-negotiable principles that we are going to uphold if we were to open a political organization, and those principles include the commitment to redress of the imbalances of the past. So there is no one who's going to say to us that, no, let us forget what happened under colonialism and apartheid, and then we then accept that. And then the other principle that we're going to firmly defend is the principle of transparency and accountability, that we must have an organization that is much more transparent and accountable to society, but also we are not going to ascribe to an organization that is defined by narrow presidentialism, where those who are leading that organizations are the be-all and end-all of whatever happens in that particular organization. Because I've observed in other organizations that such is a perennial and very limiting feature which will not make any movement to grow to appeal to all South Africans.
Now that you've touched on that, many could say you're probably speaking of the Economic Freedom Fighters leader, or perhaps former President Jacob Zuma in this instance, because many have spoken when it comes to MKPARTY, that what you spoke of when you spoke of MKPARTY last week, speaking of intelligence reports and speaking of scoundrels that are within close proximity of the president of MKHONTO WESIZWE, that really you are almost highlighting a party that is struggling with politics of proximity, that those who have the president's ear would be the ones that probably are elevated and are the ones who actually get to be the leaders of the political party. Now, that if that were the case, that you were painting a picture of politics of proximity, what of those that would then say, you are correct, it seems they are struggling with that, but that you also were a beneficiary of politics of proximity? What? It's a question, a legitimate one. Commentators have said that.
I'm trying to figure out how beneficiary,
so they would say you probably would have been a beneficiary of these politics of proximity because you had the ear of the president, you came into the party, quickly occupied very senior strategic positions, so that now perhaps you shouldn't cry foul if others now are enjoying that access or proximity, because that is how the cookie crumbles. What would you say to that?
So do you know, like, I think I said it in the press conference as well, something which is true. Whether in the EFF or in MK, I've never gone to anyone because we are close and said that I want to lead in this particular position. Like when we started the EFF, like I was advised that I must be deputy president. I didn't say that I want to be deputy president. And then I was elected in conference in MKHONTO WESIZWE. I was assigned the role of national organizer when I arrived. But by the way, in the initial discussions before I joined, there was even suggestion by President Zuma, which is a fact, that I must be president of MKHONTO WESIZWE, something which I rejected. I said that that will be inappropriate. I can't be president of an organization which you lead, and I can't be president to you, President Zuma, because I've got tremendous respect of your leadership and you must lead this organization. And even the role of Secretary General, President Zuma is the one who called me here in Johannesburg at a hotel to say that we are thinking of making you Secretary General. Even when people were campaigning to say I must be removed as Secretary General, not once did I go to him and
then,
say
so would they not
that
be right?
I want to be. No,
would they not be right that perhaps it was not merit or mandate, that it's a mere call, that maybe now others have got the call, that
Look,
it's how it works?
So,
because
that is the politics which I'm providing a systemic and correct critique of. And by the way, it's not the first time I provide that critique of presidentialism.
Yeah.
I wrote a public article, I think, in 2017, where I critiqued the politics of presidentialism in South Africa and the entire African continent. That majority of times, those who get to be elected as presidents, they think that the organizations that they lead are their personal property, and the sphere of influence becomes their family, friends, and family members, and people that they've got proximity to. It's a phenomenon which I have historically got to critique, that those are not sustainable politics. That is why we are saying foundationally to this Africa MAYIBUYE process that if we were to constitute a political party, it must never be a personal project. It must never be a Floyd Shivambu project. If, by the way, majority of South Africans say that let us constitute a political movement and its founding president must be someone else other than myself, I will gladly accept that.
In the interest of time, Mr. Shivambu, and I
Yes.
profusely apologize. I wish we had more time with you. My other question is on the EFF. You have repeated that it is a cult. You even made an example on another platform that what used to happen, which many would have seen, is that at press conferences, it would be only the leader that would speak and the other leaders, the top leadership, would not get an opportunity to speak. Now, given that you hold such strong views about the economic freedom fighters, are you now not perhaps almost giving credence to at least some of what Malema has stated, that there was never a genuine call when MKHONTO WESIZWE party wanted progressive forces to unite, because you now felt or held or harbored these views that that was a cult. Why then would there have been a call by MKHONTO WESIZWE or yourselves to say we want to unite all progressive parties, we believe that we all can wage some sort of a strong war against perhaps the ANC or the Democratic Alliance? So right now, are you not proving them right, that you held these ill feelings towards them? Why would you have wanted to unite with a cult to say progressive forces must come together?
No, look, I still uphold deeply a conviction that all progressive forces and black political parties should unite to pursue a common agenda, because
including a cult.
The aspirations. Look, cult is an individual at the top there, but the membership of MK, the membership of ANC, the membership of EFF, the membership of ATM hold the same aspirations. What then becomes a difficulty is the individual leaders.
So you would have isolated him, meaning he would have said he was right.
When we talk about unification of progressive forces, we're talking about organizational unification of aspirations as to how do we commonly pursue the same agenda, because we represent the same constituencies. If Africa MAYIBUYE becomes a political party, it will fervently and relentlessly pursue the unification of all progressive forces if there's no decisive majority given to Africa MAYIBUYE as a political party. That is the agenda which will dearly and consistently protect and uphold and promote amongst all the progressive forces, because that is what we should. We should not be in a position as black progressive forces to want to seek refuge with the settlers and the descendants of white colonial settlers, because they carry a different agenda domestically and globally. So there is a scope of unification of all the progressive forces, inclusive of the ANC, because we represent the same aspirations. If we were to go to members of all these political parties and check what their interests are, it's similar interest, and political leaders must be matured enough to then unify the objectives and agenda in terms of
the leaders would feel hard done by that you are actually courting the membership and not them, because even with the ANC you stated that it would be foolish. They have no direction, so it means you exclude and cannibalize these political parties. They all must come under that banner.
It does
for them
happen.
At least it would look like that.
There are so many instances where these cultish organizations, you have leaders who don't have the primary interest of their members on the ground. And that is what we're trying to move away from. That is why we are thinking and we're consulting on the possibility of constituting a different political movement, because those that are supposed to represent their constituencies are not representing their constituencies, they are representing themselves. And they are representing their own personal interest and their family interest. And that is demonstrated with how they manage the internal resources that are meant to benefit their own organizations.
Mr. Shivambu, I really profusely apologize. I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, I'm